Hi, this is Daniel Alpine, animation historian, and welcome to a new episode of Animation Memory Lane. 65 years ago, Walt Disney's 17th animated feature film,
101 Dalmatians to critical and box office success, and in contrast to the previous film, Sleeping Beauty, production of this film ran much smoother. The book, The 101 Dalmatians, was first written in 1956 by British author Dodie Smith, and it was inspired in part by the fact that she had a pair of Dalmatian dogs. Walt Disney read the book and was immediately charmed by it, and he then decided to adapt it into an animated feature.
to adapt the book into a workable film narrative.
Master story artist Bill Peet would write the script, storyboard the entire film himself, and design the characters, which is a feat still unheard of, for usually there would be 12 to 15 people on the story crew.
Bill was able to adapt the book into a very immersive film story about these two Dalmatian dogs on their mission to save their puppies.
Even Dodie Smith praised Bill's script as being better than her book.
Before we go further, please drop a comment, give this video a thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel for more content. For this project, a new animation technique was invented. That was because the previous film,
Sleeping Beauty was a very expensive production, and its box office performance was poor. This would lead to significant cutbacks. It was then that the studio's chief inventor, Ub Iwerks, would find a solution to making animation cheaper to produce.
it was then that Ub Iwerks would invent
The Xerox process, which would instead use a machine to trace the animation onto cells instead of hand tracing them as before, because that was a very expensive process.
the animators, in particular
Milt Kahl and Mark Davis enjoyed the process, for it allowed their own drawings to be seen in the final product instead of a different artist trying to match their drawings. The art direction would take the studio in a different direction because the style by Ken Anderson would be more modern than the previous animated films. First, the backgrounds were painted with shapes, and then they would be covered with a separate cell that had black ink lines that would add more details. It would be a style more reminiscent of artist Picasso instead of the detailed Disney style from before.
Here's a special fun fact. The original voice of Cruella de Vil,
Betty Lou Gerson was the narrator from Cinderella in 1950, and her last role was in the 1997 Turner animated film Cats Don't Dance. When 101 Dalmatians was released in 1961, it was considered the best Disney animated movie since Dumbo. The film's villain Cruella de Vil would continue to be one of the most popular Disney villains ever. The film would eventually be followed by a live action remake in 1996, which would spawn a sequel in 2000. The animated film would also receive a actually good direct to video sequel in 2002. There were also two animated television series based on the movie.
to learn more about the making of 101 Dalmatians, please remember to check out my article on my blog, Daniel Alpine's Animation Wonderland. Link is in the description. This is animation historian Daniel Alpine, and I'll see you next time.